welcome back to the show. We're talking with Suzanne Bernier about climbing the continuity career ladder. Suzanne, in the last segment, you started to touch on LinkedIn, and I got a feeling I know where you're going with that. Can you tell us how LinkedIn can help us?
Yeah, and I think LinkedIn is a great avenue, and there have been so many examples of where I've been able to make great connections with people, and also have good potential career opportunities, and just being able to network with people at a global scale. LinkedIn has just been amazing to be able to do that. And these days, this is another avenue now that people have that we didn't have 20 years ago when I entered the field, right, where we could actually have networking like this, where we could promote ourselves on something like a LinkedIn. So I'm also thinking of LinkedIn specifically for people, for looking for career advice and being able to enhance their marketability through LinkedIn and their visibility, is also not just thinking of it as a networking opportunity and how many people you're connected with, but also look at it as being able to publish different articles, because you can publish your own articles on LinkedIn, and being able to post links to other articles that are of interest in the field and your own comments attributed to them, and seeking out others' comments in the field and getting discussions going, and that kind of thing. So really being a contributor within LinkedIn as opposed to just somebody who has a profile. And not just LinkedIn, but of course there's so many other social media avenues too. So it really is a great era now to be able to really use all of these different things that are out there technology-wise to be able to enhance your visibility. However, I also caution people that because of it, also be aware that everybody now has, as opposed to 20 years ago, everybody now has the capability through their smartphone to be able to record you secretly, record what you're doing, videotape you, audio tape you, whatever it is, and then send it on social media 2 minutes later, where it can be broadcast around the world. We've unfortunately seen where this has been done for people in positions of power, and it has done severe reputational damage to their image, and that's something to look at. And I'm not saying that we're all going to be in positions of extreme power one day, but think about, no one wants to be in an interview one day for this key role that you want to have in our industry or whatever industry it is, and then they pull up some pretty embarrassing tweets that you might have said, or a video that of you doing something or saying something that might be controversial. So that's just a challenge, an additional challenge that we have of social media, I think, that people just have to be aware of, not just in our industry, but just in general, that we really are our own personal brand. Every one of us. You are your personal brand. And even if you're not in the office, you are your personal brand. And if you want to market yourself as that, and be respected in the field, then you have to be aware of that. And
That's
know
true.
that, or be prepared for that one day you might not get that job or that position because something came out that you might have tweeted out or you might have had on YouTube or whatever years ago. And, we've seen a lot of examples of that. But overall, I'm seeing that the benefits far outweigh the negatives of being able to use social media. So think of some different ways. I'm encouraging people being able to use LinkedIn and other social media, thinking about not only posting a picture like a headshot in your LinkedIn profile, but more like of an action shot. And specifically think of something that makes you different than anybody else in the field, or maybe something doing an action role of your job, or what makes you a specialist in that area. So personalize it a bit more, and that'll make you stand out. Promote yourself and your accomplishments. Ask for recommendations. Broaden your list of connections. That'll, it never hurts to broaden that list of connections on LinkedIn and other social media websites. If you have additional skills, make sure that and it's not about bragging, it's how are people going to know what kinds of skills you have unless you talk about it, unless you put it out there. And LinkedIn is a great way to do that. It has an area where you can actually add a tab in for different things, like, do you know an additional language? Do you have different skills or expertise in areas? Take advantage of those special areas to put down what makes you different and what different things that you have knowledge in and expertise in. And again, I feel that, especially for Canada, and Canadians, I have found that sometimes they feel like it's bragging and it's not right to be able to talk about your achievements and your accomplishments. But it's not about bragging. Again, it's about promoting your accomplishments, because how else are people going to know the work that you've been doing unless you talk about it? And so take advantage of those social media networks like LinkedIn to do that. Also think about the different things out there like industry associations and conferences that have their own publications, or industry publications themselves. You mentioned DRJ that you're going to be at in September. DRJ and their website, and Continuity Magazine by the BCI. There's so many different publications out there that are run by different industry associations and organizations that are looking for content. If you're an expert and you want to write about something that you've done or a great program that you've implemented in your company that was successful, write about it. And there's so many different areas out there that are begging for content on lessons learned and case studies. And again, that's a great way then to be able to let people know about something that you've done or your company has done and implemented BCP or EM-wise. And
true.
Again, a great way to get free publicity and publications out of it. And then also a last thing I would advise is for people to really look at those speaking opportunities that they have, because that's one of the things that I've noticed in the end that's really been able to help me and opened me up to other opportunities, was just having that extra visibility being on the stage. And just being at different conferences. And I'll just give you an example of that, and then I'll give you, or perhaps I'll just give it some tips, and I'll give an example of why I would really recommend that taking those speaking opportunities, and give you an example of how that personally worked out well for me. But some tips on speaking internally. First of all, if you want to be able to gain some visibility within your own company and let people know the great work that you're doing or that your program is doing, or that your area is doing, is look at different groups that have weekly meetings or divisional meetings or monthly meetings and see how you or your team can get on that agenda and talk about yourself and your program, and talk about BCP or EM and how it's helping them. And then you'll get people to listen. And then they'll become aware of you and your team and all of the great things that you're doing to be able to ensure their safety and the safety of the company. So it's a win-win for everybody. People are looking for great content for speakers internally as well as externally. So think internally first, if that's your main goal, is to enhance yourself internally. But then also start small and think larger externally for other external speaking opportunities if your goal is to enhance your marketability externally. So then start thinking about that, like local chambers of commerce even. My first speaking opportunity actually came from a local chamber of commerce that wanted someone to come in and talk about business continuity plans and emergency management. And that was, 10 years ago now, where that was the official one. But since then, there have been hundreds since. But one of them that I'll talk about for a second was just happened to be speaking at a conference that was run by the UN. And there was somebody in the audience that came up afterwards and said, hey, a good presentation on pandemic planning. It was about pandemic planning at the time. And they said, hey, we happen to need a consultant to come in for a couple months at UN headquarters and review our current pandemic plans, and wondering if you'd be interested and available. Well, I never would have had that opportunity, ever, if I wasn't in that situation where I happened to be speaking at the conference. That person happened to be hearing me and then came up to me afterwards. And then here's another tip for people who are listening, was originally I thought, well, I had a full-time job. I was working for the government at the time, still, the Ontario government. And I thought, well, I'm not going to be able to just go away for 2 months and take this contract with the UN. But I thought, well, maybe I'll just take a shot and ask if I can get an unpaid leave to do this and come back. And I did, and they said yes. And of course, because then if you think about it, it made them look good as well, and it was good for them because one of their staff people was asked to take a leave to go to the UN. So anyway, it worked out for everybody.
That's true. Yeah.
I went to do that, but then when I came back, then I started getting calls by headhunters, and then things really exploded from there. Because then, once you have UN on your resume, it really changes things as well. But again, all of that was just through an opportunity through speaking.
Yeah, I agree. I enjoy the speaking. I did stop for a little while just because I was, had to concentrate on a couple of other things. But it actually does give you a lot of visibility, and it gives you, because you mentioned internally, it gives you a lot of credibility within your own organization. Because suddenly you're not just an employee. Suddenly you become an expert, and people start looking at you within the organization, going, "Ask so and so what they think about this." Even if it's just remotely relatable, they start thinking of you, and that does help market yourself.
Right.
It brings your profile up, and with the organizations, like you said, volunteering or joining and mentoring, or forums, different forum groups on LinkedIn, that gets your name over everything, and you're not bragging, like as you say, you're marketing yourself, and I think that's really good. The speaking engagements, I completely agree with.
Right. And I mean, I know that sometimes speaking engagements, for some people, it's not their thing, which is why I also recommend the whole looking at the industry publications that are out there and writing and submitting that way, because I know some people that's not what they want to do. But it really does, as you said, it really does enhance your visibility and credibility in the industry for sure, or in any industry you're in.
Now, we've only got 3 minutes left, and I know you have to go. Do you have any closing comments for a minute or so that you'd like to suggest to our listeners?
Sure. I think that if I could just have one piece of advice for people, regardless of what stage of the field that they're in and where they want to go, it's just I think the biggest piece of advice, based on my experience throughout the journey so far, is to really keep yourself open. And it's all about networking and really putting yourself out there, whatever way you feel comfortable in doing it, whether it's and sharing and being comfortable in sharing your expertise. And helping others through it. And I think that's another area where I think people need to be a bit more comfortable with, knowing that sometimes, the people who might brag about how experts they are in something maybe not are the experts in things. So I'm not saying maybe it's not best to go around touting yourself as I'm an expert in, but more about how you have knowledge in something and and how that knowledge, and you're working with the knowledge that you have to be able to help others. And that's really how you're going to be able to get that buy-in and that extra acknowledgement from people within your organization, let's say, as well, is being able to speak to them through your presentation by telling them how great you are in the work that your team is doing and you're doing, but what's making it great is it's because it's ensuring the safety of them and their team. As really how you really get people to get on your side is if you're making them aware that you're doing this for them and it's about them. It's not really about you.
That's right.
So, I mean, I know I'm kind of contradicting what I'm saying, because I'm saying you want to make it about you and being able to talk about all of the skills that you have and what you bring to the table, but it's also making sure that you're bringing them into it as well, and involving them and talking about how it's all just for the greater good of the organization and the community overall. And I think that if everybody has that as their ultimate goal, that we're all in this for the greater good, and to understand that there's so many different areas that they can follow, and just think about which area you want to follow, which people are out there that are great mentors. Communicate with them, link in with them. I'd advise anybody who's listening to link in with me as well as follow me on Twitter if you'd like. At SB Crisis is my Twitter account. You can go to my website and find out all of my different social media accounts there. My website's just my name, SuzanneBernier.com. And anybody who wants to just reach out, once you link me in, feel free to send me some questions. And again, I think this industry is great because it's all about sharing, and it's not about competition, it's about collaboration.
That's right. And on that, we have to end because we've come to the end. I'd like to thank Suzanne. Thanks for joining us and giving us all these tips and things to look in to help boost our careers. And even for people that have been in the industry for a long time, there are still some things that you've addressed here that maybe they can go and do and raise up their own profile and market themselves and suddenly find themselves moving forward really quick. So thank you very much for giving us all of that. And in the meantime, stay prepared, everybody.
If you liked that video, thumbs up. If you didn't like that video, thumbs down. But leave me a message and let me know your thoughts. Of course, don't forget to subscribe. And in the meantime, stay prepared, everybody.